And so Angular is not just for the look and feel of the web apps and the user experience. It's also about a lot about the speed and performance via web workers and server side rendering and all. And scalability, control, and productivity. I think Angular meets all these requirements, even building huge data requirements and all. So in short, I would say that we can say that if like web application was uh, a game of cricket, so Angular is nothing short of Sachin Tendulkar in that game. So with that, I will start the introduction for today's session. And before I run through the introduction, I just want to quickly introduce about what we do here at Multi Cloud for you and why we are conducting these sessions for free, and why we bring all the speakers from industry and all. So as you would know from our previous sessions that we are not really trainers. In fact, we are a group of metal tested technologists, PhDs, innovators, and mostly engineers. So our primary motivations have been that what we looked was that there was a gap which we kind of tried to fill through these community. We are trying to bring all the seasoned technologists and practitioners and leaders and speakers like Nitin and other speakers in the past sessions to share all their wealth of experience within the industry, and help out the young technologists. And also one of the other primary motivations that we have is that we want to enhance the capacity of innovation that usually comes by learning from our different kind of speakers, and even you guys from the community giving us feedback and whatnot. And obviously we want to build organizational and social trust between the tech community so that we come up as a family of all the technologists, and we want to reciprocate what we have learned in the industry and lower the entry barriers for all the new entrants which are entering the industry, and especially during these times when it's becoming more and more difficult due to the economic recession and the COVID scenario. And also we want to support the technologists in their odd times, and there are events where people have been losing their jobs, and there have been unfortunate events. So we are kind of creating that wealth of experience, and not just that, we are trying to build up a family of all the technologists who could help each other. So that's our primary motivations. Now, what do we generally do here at Multi Cloud for you? We have built expertise over the years in these four strong pillars of technology, namely multi-cloud strategy. So we are involved end to end for consultancy, and we get involved as being core hardcore technologists, doing the production and technology implementations for different enterprise applications for small and medium businesses and the Fortune companies as well. So we specialize in multi-cloud strategy end to end. Then we have a very strong arm in data science and AI. It's like we have been involved in path-breaking research work. We are building a huge library which could be as huge as Angular in some time to come for in the field of mathematical optimization. We have expertise in deep learning, machine learning, cloud ML, and have been conducting sessions in past. We have partnered with different companies like Linode, Alibaba, and a lot of others. And then we have blockchain or sessions and enterprise frameworks in blockchain. We've already uh, started taking like huge leaps in this area as well. We have our own blockchain framework. We mostly take sessions to educate people on smart contracts, consensus, blockchain security, all the blockchain basics basically. And through of course our our platform. And obviously, doing this, all these things requires an extreme engineering. So we have, with people like Anjani and Dheeraj, we have very strong mentoring leadership across India and US for all the engineering practices, which includes cloud architecture, enterprise engineering, content delivery, risk platform, CXO level consulting. So yeah, in short, we develop all these capabilities over the period of time, and we are trying to encourage and foster um, um, close coordination between technologists. With this, I would request somebody to please go on mute. I can hear some noise. Yep. Right. So moving on with the introductions for today's session. Uh, so today we'll be talking about building single page apps with Angular JS, and this session will be taken by Nitin Pandit, who is a Microsoft MVP and a very accomplished speaker in the industry. Nitin, specializes in .NET, Azure, Angular, blockchain, and SE at Infragistics, and he is C# corner developer and evangelist. Nitin can be reached on his LinkedIn profile, which is given here, and he can also be reached at his Bitly. About me, I am a product evangelist and a researcher in mathematical optimization with a good amount of experience in the IT industry, and my main area in data science research is mathematical optimization in the field of finance and mathematical finance. I can be reached at my LinkedIn in the link given below. Before we start the session, I just want to pass on some quick instructions and requests for all the audience for this session. So it's my request that kindly be on mute while the speaker would be speaking, and if you do have any questions and answers, please type all your questions in the chat window, and we'll make sure that we go through each and every question and answer each and every query. With that, I would also say that if the speaker chooses to answer some questions during the session, I think he's obviously free to do that. All yours, Nitin. That's all from my side, and I'll keep pitching in at different places. And Anjani, I would also request you to pitch in at appropriate places. Nitin, do you want me to share my screen, or you would like to share your screen?
Thank you, Bhaskar. So I can share my screen now, I hope. So I hope I have permission. So let me try to share my screen.
Sure. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Please acknowledge once you're able to start seeing my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we are able to see it.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks everyone in this community, and thanks everyone for having me here. And I would like to start my session right now without wasting any time. So now first of all, a very good evening to everyone. I know this is Sunday, and right now in this pandemic situation, the Sunday, Saturday is almost in. We are not able to go outside, especially if you are in UP. So definitely you cannot go outside in the weekends also. Okay, so let me start my session. So we do have a session today here, which is how to create your single page applications using Angular. And I hope keeping in my mind, like if you are coming in this session, so you might be trying to focus something into web, because web UI or maybe the UX or maybe the business logic we need in anyhow in any other cases. Either you are building a blockchain based application, or you are building an IoT based application, or maybe any other application. So you need a front end to start with. And nothing like Angular. So because Angular have so many capabilities to start with, so definitely we will look every other capabilities of Angular today, and we will create a hands-on application where we will request on our REST APIs directly hosted on somewhere on cloud, and we are getting the data from there, and we will use them into my application. So what we will look like, what we are going to create today. So this will be an application look like this. So this is a sample application I just created before this session, so that just for type safety, or sometime it happens like something is not working, so I have a complete sample application to showcase you. Like this isn't something like, this is a data which is coming throughout from API, which is hosted on somewhere on Azure. So if we need to add some new record, we can add new records over here. We need to check all the records, we can check. So this is a single page application. I'm just using a single page with the multiple components. So we will see how we can create these kind of application, and what could be the good best practice, I would say, to do that. So what is Angular? So I hope if you are here, so you might be had some, you can say, homework to do that or not. So let me start with, so Angular is nothing but it's a complete web development framework. Complete web development framework, my main into this sentence is like, it's a complete framework, not just a library. And framework and library have different capabilities. Library sometimes we use to have just a single, you can say, a single capability, or maybe you can say single feasibility to use. Like if we use jQuery, so in jQuery we use jQuery Ajax to get my API request, but we do not have routing over there. We do not have, you can say, dependency injection over there. These are the principle of the programming. If we start doing something, so we should keep in my mind what should be the best practice to do it. So I am just giving you an introduction over here. Angular is a platform which is actually built by Google. From the beginning. It was just like Angular JS based on a JavaScript wrapper functions, but now it's completely changed from the version of Angular 2. And recently, Angular has announced or completely launched Angular 10, which is completely over in market. You can use any other framework to use this application from Angular 2 to Angular 10. Just keep in mind with the npm capabilities and npm repository features, what all the features Google has depreciated, and what all the new features Google has just recently announced. So as I told you, it's giving you an opportunity to enhance your HTML. So simply, if we are using HTML, so and if as a programmer, if somebody says like I'm you can say I'm writing some logics into HTML, so sometimes we laugh over it because HTML can't have these much of capabilities to write business logic. It's just a markup thing to put your entity somewhere into the browser. But HTML cannot do some business logic. But yes, we have some other JavaScript framework. From the past so many years, we are using JavaScript. And trust me, JavaScript also has a great future. If you are coming from Microsoft technology background, so you might be here, Blazor is going to be, you can say, capture the market, you can say in competitive market of JavaScript, because now C Sharp has the same capability that JavaScript can do over the browser. So that is something different. But yes, for if you are using Angular, so which is something you can say more and good capabilities to do. We will use TypeScript over here to write my business logic. And TypeScript again, it's designed and maintaining by Microsoft, and you can say Angular is designed and maintaining by Google. So it's not like a collaboration project. Both companies just are independent companies, but Microsoft just working on TypeScript for different technology stack, and Google adopt TypeScript to write the logic for your Angular applications. So before starting any Angular, we should understand why we need Angular. As Bhaskar already told you about that, but still, it's supported by Google, and we all know the support about Google, which is very great support. It's use TypeScript, not JavaScript directly, but yes, we can write JavaScript too. So I'm not like saying you like we cannot use JavaScript into that. Yes, we can use whenever you want, because we have a POJO capabilities at the point number 4. So plain old JavaScript object. So you can wrap your objects sometime like you need something to put into, you can say, in JavaScript format. But before that, why we using TypeScript over there? because TypeScript is just like you can say an object-oriented programming for all the programmers who's coming from back-end application development, like from Java, like from .NET, C Sharp. So they feel sometimes you can say not so much confident into JavaScript because JavaScript was like initially JavaScript was just a functional programming. Right now it supports all classes, inheritance, all the features, but in the initial time it was just using and the functional programming. And if we are coming from a you can say oops background, object oriented programming background, so we feel some kind of you can say less confident over there. But right now in TypeScript you are free to use your pure object oriented architectures to use any other kind of you can say object oriented capabilities. We have directive UI over there. What is directive UI? I'll tell you later on in this session only. Easy to testing. We will use here Karma, which is you can say by Jasmine. If you heard about Jasmine Karma framework, which is a unit test framework for JavaScript kind of environments, you can use that over here. It simplified your MVC or single page applications architecture. It's simplify. How it's simplify? It's allow you to distribute your logic separately as a service. It's allow you to put your UI separate as HTML pages. It's allow you to put your controlling kind of functionalities somewhere into different class or same thing. It's also work for single page application. So it's simplified everything. Benefit of modular structure you will get if you are creating some kind of enterprise application. What happens in enterprise application if we are building some kind of enterprise application? So there's so many you can say a functional implementation that we need to represent on a same page or maybe on a multiple page with different URLs. So we need to manage them all together in a single application. So modular structure allow you to divide your application modules in some separate modules, and those modules are basically scalable kind of environment gives you. Like if you heard about in cloud computing scalability, so if this is not actual scalability, I'm just using that scalable word to give you an example how you can power up your application to add some modules directly which is ready to use. The code consistency come up with the code reusability. Code reusability along with you can say the same code. If you write for some specific logic throughout the application, you can use that particular code multiple times. Before now, again, before going after features, before going directly to writing code, you should understand what you should be required before jumping into any Angular application. So the first thing that we required, which is npm. So npm is nothing like a programming; it's just a, you can say repository manager for all the open source repository which has come up with different community. So they have posted their entire packages to reuse multiple times globally with a different application and different you can say organizations. So even if you want an Angular to use in your system, so you have to go in npm and you need to get that Angular CLI or maybe the Angular modules in your local system throughout npm. So apart from them, we need Angular CLI to understand. As right now, either you are a cloud developer, either you are an application developer, CLI is something into trend. So how CLI is useful for Angular application? Trust me, if CLI is not there, we all will be having so many trouble to create different modules. And I'll show you how CLI helpful for us to creating some new application to add new you can say capabilities into an existing Angular application. So CLI is just you can say command prompt like you did in the past, any command prompt like CMD command prompt. But here to start any command for Angular extension for Angular CLI, we just need to have a you can say a prefix which is ng. So ng is just a you can say command enabler kind of. You can use it to write that ng, and your Angular CLI will be start listening your request. Apart from Angular CLI, we need to understand some basic structure of HTML along with CSS. I hope everybody in this session, you might be aware with that. Apart from them, we need TypeScript, and at last we need RxJX. So these two will make you enable with more new capabilities for writing your business logic. So TypeScript we will definitely use to write my business logic, but RxJX we will use some kind of synchronous request in Angular. Like we need some instance which is coming from my cloud and it's taking much time. So instead of getting the entire bundle of the data, we can get that data into kind of you can say sequence asynchronously. Sequence but asynchronous, like that means it will get me the old data, but not all together. It will not wait for the entire data at the server side to get me the entire data. Excuse me. It will get the chunks kind of data. If server returning one by data, it can keep rendering that data in my application. And where in your application you want to get that data, definitely you have some strategy to follow, and I'll show you that. Just for right now, I'll just tell you there's two words that you need to understand and remember, which is observable and subscribe, and we will definitely use these two today in my session. So after that, what benefit others we have in Angular? The next benefit that we have in Angular, Angular have so many good product, you can say third-party controls, like even where I'm working in Infragistics, so which is also having so many third-party console, beautiful controls for Angular application, that is we call Ignite UI, which is completely up to you. I'm not going to show you some kind of Infragistics product over here. This is not an Infragistics session. So you can keep continue and watching any other capabilities from Infragistics itself. Just telling you, Angular has so many other capabilities to use from third-party controls. The ID that we will use today in this session, that will be Visual Studio Code. You can use some other IDs also, like Sublime Test or maybe Atom, whatever you love to use, or simply you can write your Angular application maybe in Visual Studio, Eclipse, or maybe any other ID, like maybe not plus plus even. You can use any other editor for to write your application. So let's start. Before starting the code, if we start an Angular, we should focus on these 5 points. So in this today's session, we will cover these 5 topics: how modules work, what is directive and component, what is services, what is template, what is pipes. So module is like a bundle. Inside a module, we can have directives, services, templates, pipes all together. How it works? Like this. Anything that you need to show on an application, that will be known as a template. And for adding some data into this template, we need some bindings. I'll show you binding later on. But yes, from that, like using those binding, from that data will come, that is my component. So as I told you, component is you can say minimum requirement to start an application using this Angular application, Angular environment, I would say. So this is an action time. Let me jump into my code and let me show you how you can use it. First of all, what you need to do, you need to go on a cli.angular.io URL. You will find that image over there. I'll just copy that image from there, or else you can simply remember the command. First thing your system require node, you can say node to be used for this particular npm. So first thing that you required on your system, which is node, yes, for sure node. After using node, you can write this particular command, npm install -g, which is globally Angular CLI. Once it will be installed in your system. Let me show you. Once it will be in your system, you can just type, you can just check writing ng. If you are writing ng on your command prompt and it's giving you some options to do that, like available command for ng, so you can just think about your Angular is already installed in your machine. Don't, like, it doesn't matter which version you are using for now, because all the capability that I'm going to show you, that will be available, like you can say Angular 5, Angular maybe on the later on versions. So for that, now what you can do, if you need to create a new Angular application, so which is, we just have a simple URL or maybe a simple thing to use, which is ng. After that, we need to use a new command. Let me just show you how simply you can do that. Even I have successfully created some application, because it will take a bit of time. So I have second application to show you. So what you have to write, just you need to write ng new. Once you will do that, now Angular schematics will start asking you some questions to make a template ready for this application. So for the first question, it will ask you the what project name you should give to this application. Suppose I said demo 2, because I have earlier created demo 1. So now the second question, it will ask you, would you like to add routing? As I told you, Angular having routing in its own nature. You do not have to do anything extra to make a routing for this particular application. You, while creating an application, just need to put y for yes and n for no. And if you are still posting, you can say n for no for here. You can keep adding these routing capabilities on in the later on time. So for now, I can put that yes. So the last question it will ask you, which is just which type of styling or the design system you want to use in your application. So design system is very, very important. If you are using materials, so I would suggest you to use SCSS, says for that, maybe SAS on less, whatever. Or if you are using just simply Bootstrap for making your application more beautified, so just you can press enter on CSS. Now it will take maybe few seconds or few minutes. It's completely depend on the capability of your computer and the network speed, because the first time it will download all the files from npm in your local machine. You will not believe, but it will get more than 13,000 files just by this command, and it will create a complete folder of that is called as node module. So I'll show you later on. It will it will start installing all these, and once it will be done, it will show you these kind of successful masses once it will be success. So that application will take time. I just recently created an application with the name demo one. So I will use this application for this particular sample. So now what you have to do, you just need to enter in this particular folder, maybe cd demo. So I have demo one, so I can just jump to this particular folder. Now I need to open this particular folder in my editor. So this is a pretty simple command to use, code space dot. This code space dot will open the current repository in your Visual Studio Code itself directly. So once you will do that, so here is your project just open in your Visual Studio Code. So I hope the earlier application that we created, see, you can see it's still taking time. So now this is my application. What we get just after writing this command. So this is a folder, not underscore module. This is a complete folder that is installed by my Angular CLI directly in my system. You do not have to worry about this particular size, because by default, even it's a default project, the size of this app, you can say folder, will be more than, I hope, 230 MB on the local system. But you don't have to worry about the deployment things, because you do not have to deploy all these things. We have to build this application, and we will generate and build output of this application, and we will deploy somewhere that build output in my cloud. It may be Alibaba, it may be AWS, or maybe Azure or Google Cloud, whatever the cloud the way you love. Now, in this particular folder, the source folder is this just simply src. So the application that you want to work, the application which is you have to work on, this will be into this particular src folder. Without taking much time, because we have now less just 30 minutes to complete this session. So this is just a basic thing. You can just keep learning these things on default. You can say on angular.io website, or maybe on my blogs on tutorialsting.com, where you love to use. So in this particular section, we have this particular folder that is app. Let me tell you how this application start working. So if we need to try this application, how it should run, we need to go back again, my you can say command prompt, or either I can open a local terminal in this Visual Studio directly. I just use a shortcut command. But for the first time, if you don't know about the shortcut command, you can just go into the menu and you can find the first option from there, which is just a simply new terminal. Once you click on this new terminal, it will give you a terminal, and it will understand all your command and all the environment that you installed on your local machine. You can add on multiple terminals. If some commands is already working over here, you can just use this particular plus button to add one more terminal in the same Visual Studio Code. So here, I would just write ng serve. So what this command ng serve, this ng serve start deploy this application just for a preview in a local machine. So if I'll just put this ng serve, it will give me an exception because it required a port number to run. I have a different application that I shows you here, this application which is working on 4200, and 4200 is a default number of this particular terminal, or you can say Visual Angular application. So if you have to use some other port number, so you can just use hyphen port, and you can put some other port number like 4300. It's completely upon you. You can also add one more flag, which is just open or just simply O. If you want to, after successfully compile this application for the first time, and if you want to open this into the default browser. So once I'll put this, so now it will start deploying in my local machine using Webpack on this particular port number 4300, but how my request process work in this particular application. So let me show you. It's start compiling my application. Once this compilation process will be done, it will open this default port number using localhost. You can see the port number will be here as mentioned. So on my default browser, and the first request, whenever the first request browser will create, so the first request will come over here, which is just main.ts. So main.ts is the first file in an Angular application. So as you can see, it just opened that URL in my default browser in Google Chrome. So this is a default application layout. The version of Angular I'm using in my local machine, which is Angular 7, because right now I'm working with one of my client Infosys to work on their project. So that's why I degraded my system's version in Angular 7, but you don't have to worry about it because all the concept I'm going to use, they will be keep remaining same on Angular 10 also. So here in this case, when my browser just generate a single request, so the first request came to this particular thing, which is main.ts. So main.ts for the first request, it's start your platform. And in that particular platform, which applications module will be start? As I shows you in the beginning of this section, Angular gives you an environment for a modular application architecture. So the first module in your application, which is an app module, and you can see app module having a complete folder over here. So it will just start this particular app module by creating its instance. So what it will does, so as I told you, will create its instance. So its instance means it's a class, as you can see in the tooltip of this particular screen. So app module is a class. So if I'll right click on it and I'll go to definition, so I'll see app module.ts is a file which is written into ts, that a TypeScript, that's why its extension is ts, and which is in my app folder, which is very pretty simple. So once this application will come, so this is my complete first module. Anything that you have to create new components, anything that you have to create new modules, you have to register first that particular module in this particular file. I'll show you. So right now, as I have this default UI and I don't want it, I seriously don't want this particular UI. So what I can do, I can go back and I can check which component this module started. So here we have this particular property for this particular app module, and this is we call decorators. In short, you will keep remember this decorator as the metadata container. So metadata container, that means all the data that belongs to this module, like what are the components that we have, they will be in declarations. All the third party, or you can say all the other external modules, if we need to use there, we need to define them into imports. That means we need these modules in my application providers. We will use this for, you can say something like if I'm going to create any dependency injection services over there. And bootstrap define the component that will start while loading this application. So that component which is being loaded, which is app component, and again it's a class. Everything that is having a logic, which is a class over here. As I told you, it's a complete based on object-oriented architecture. So if I'll go over here, or I can show you, here is a file app component.ts. So let me show you. These are the four files: app component.css, app component.html, app component.ts, app component.spec.ts. So spec.ts used for writing unit test casing, uses using Karma. App.component.ts is used to write your logic. App.component.html used to put your HTML. App.component.cs used to put your style. If you don't want to use them, you can just remove all this content. But before, because I need something like a bootstrap to use the styles, so I can add more components into that also. So as I can show you here, I have already running this application, so I can stop this command, or I can make a new, I can enable one more new terminal over here. What command you have to simply write? So for adding bootstrap in this Angular, you just need to put this particular command, npm install bootstrap save. So this command will save you even time, and it will add directly bootstrap in your current project. Once it will be done, it will get all the new, you can say, the bootstrap capabilities from npm, and it will load into your machine, and where it will install them into the node modules. So what we have to do, we have to use the css of bootstrap for my current application. So before, I'm just going to add, as it's a default style, just check this UI. This is a plain simple URL, and let me enable bootstrap. See, this command is successfully added. Now we have to go here in the file, which is style.css, which is a root style. We can import bootstrap css from node underscore module folder that we just recently added. And this file, if I just added again, see here, this is a default UI before enabling the bootstrap. And let me just save this file and let me come up on the same page. This page will refresh itself as you will just save this file, and you will see over here what are the differences. You can see it's refreshing, so you can see the font got changed, the style got changed. So that's why that means bootstrap got enabled in this particular you can say project. But still I don't want this default UI. So what I can do, I can just select this all. Just I can leave this particular router outlet. I'll show you what this router outlet does. So just remove all the content. So if I'm just going to save, you can see my page is blank. We do not have anything in my DOM now. So what this router outlet does, so as I showed you, we have to create a single page application. So in this single page application, we will be having multiple components to reload into the runtime. Like whenever we want a complete grid, so we will load that. So as I can show you in this particular sample, so here I can show you this grid is being loaded into that router outlet. This form is being loaded into that router outlet, and these menu icons or maybe menu buttons, these are the outside of this router outlet. So either you can put them over here, or either you can go into this default page, which is a single page of this application, which is index.cs. And this was my default component, that is we call selector. And how you get to know which page we have to load over here? First, design your application UI, and whenever you will be you will be done with the UI, and now you just need to have to put the content like which you want to use. Just go over here and find this selector in component and just put that selector here in your HTML, and now you are good to go to use it. So what we can do now, we can add 3 more components in this application. So like I have to create one component over here for, maybe I can just write here for adding a new element. Let me just do that. Next, I have to add one more component over here for all the list. You can see here, once I'll add it, so it's adding 4 new files for style, for testing, for logic, and for you can say styles, and for TypeScript. So all these files are there. If you want to handle all the you can say unauthorized URL request, we can also create one more you can say component which is for not page not found. So how I'm creating a component? NG again for extension for Angular, G for generate, C for component, stress component name. So I just created 3 components, and each and every component has its own folder over here. You can see in my left section. And all these files have all these folders have all those 4 files that I elaborated just before. So now all these files are ready to use. What we need them now? We need to define some component routing. Routing, that means if my default page, so what should be the default route? If anyone writing typing, you can say in the URL add new, so which component should load? So for managing routing, we have this particular file app routing.module.cs, and here we have you can say an instance routes. So in this routes object, you can define your route with you can say JSON instances. You have to just define 2 property like this. Let me show you. So the first property that we have to define, which is path. What will be the path? And on behalf of this path, which component we have to load? So we have to load app component, pretty simple. So if the URL is add new, so which component we have to load for that? So I'm importing add new component over here. We need to load add component. If anyone writing employees in my URL, which component I should use? So that will be employees component. So all these components you just recently created. And if your user is typing anything in my browser, so we use $* as the path value for the wild characters. So if user typing anything, we can use these kind of wild characters to handle it. So now if I'll go back in this application and I'll show you So this is my default application. If I'll put something over here wrongly, so you can see here, not found works. That means that particular page works. If I'll say add new, so the path that we define, so add new works. So you can say the default masses or maybe employees. So you can see here employees work. So all component is working pretty fine, but we cannot allow my user to put everything from URL directly, because it's very you can say it's quite hard for the non-technical peoples to remember the URL. So what I can do best for that, I can create a container for kind of menu, and I can have some anchor link. So as I suggest to you, we can go in this particular index, and before using my app module, I can put this particular content over here. So what this does, this is just a bootstrap class container. And in this container, I'm just using two anchor links, one for all record, one for new. And what I'm doing, that the same thing I'm doing that was earlier I was doing manually in my URL. So I will add these points in my URL. Once I'll save that and I'll go back in my page. So now you'll see I'll find them over my, so see, it's a default because app component now doesn't have anything. If I'll click on all records, so it will show me the old record works. If I'll click on add new, so add new works. So this is just for that. So now what I want to get some records from my data. So let me now jump into this particular employee section. So in this particular uh, HTML file, instead of this, I will use, you can say, I will use maybe a dev container. So because we have very less time, so what I will use, I'll just show you how you can do that. So pretty simply, what I did, I just put a div over here using you can say bootstrap class container that will be containing these particular content. I just created an HTML table with a using table class. Again, it's a bootstrap predefined class. I created a header row for ID, name, and salary. And for the next row that we have to implement multiple times because we don't know what will be the data for this particular table. So I need to declare a variable where I will get my data from my, you can say, live database or maybe from my local database. So for that, I will use a loop over here. So just please think about it. For using loop, we have a structural directive architecture in Angular. For that, we use just star ng4, like for each in some other different technologies like C#. So we declare a variable as let row. So row will be an instance of employee. So what is this employee? This employee is nothing but it's an object in this particular employee.component class. Let me declare an employee, uh, just an employee reference over here. Maybe if you want to define a type, you can just use any. So in C, in TypeScript, the default data type is any. So I just created a variable, a global variable employees with the type any. So any can have different type of value at runtime. So that's why I just put it. So now I have a variable employees. So from employee, I want to get a value. And what this template is doing, so row will contain the each data of this particular collection, and we are getting the property from like this. So before check this out, I would love to show you Angular bindings. So Angular bindings contains four type of binding in its nature. First, that is we call you can see just to read the value. So just for reading the value, we use interpolation bracket. So in interpolation bracket, the curly braces the two times you have to use. And you can use the variable name over here and you can get that value. You can use property binding, that is also we call one-way binding. This is an event binding. This is something sometime we call to have some operations on particular button click, drop down change on these kind of events. Also, we have two-way binding. So for two-way binding, we use ng model. I'll show you how you can use the two-way binding also. So these are the bindings. Right now, I just have to read the value from this row instance. So I just use this interpolation bracket. In general, double curly braces two times, open and close. So in that, I put row, this object name, and the ID property that we have to use. I'm not sure whether we have this data or not. Let me just show you. Let me go into the all record and you'll see the empty data because your employees doesn't containing any data right now. So let me show you how if we have some data right now, this data is not coming from somewhere from, you can say, live data. So I'm going to put that data as just a local JSON element, a collection. So you can see this is local JSON data. So if I save this, so you'll see the old data from that environment, it's being rendered in your application very pretty simply. But trust me, we don't have to do this. We need to get this data instead of from local data. We need to get this data from my live URL. So I have a live URL over here. Even that you can use Nitin REST API, which is hosted somewhere on my Azure, which is using ASP.NET Web APIs architecture behind the scene and the SQL Server database. So this data is coming from SQL Server using ASP.NET Web APIs. So this is a JSON information and this is the URL that we have to use. So now what you have to do, you just need to create a service, and for using that service, we can read this data. So what we can do, we can create a service now in my application. So what is service? Service is another class. But what is the difference into a normal service and you can say a normal class and a service class? A normal class, if you have to call, you have to create its instance using new keyword manually. That makes a hard coded, you can say tightly coupling in your environment. Because if in future, in that case, that class will have some constructed dependencies, so your code will be break. But if you don't want to use that, so we have pretty simple over environment over here. We can simply write ng generate class. So either you can create one more new terminal over here, and we can simply put this URL over here, this particular type ng generate c ng g for generate, c for service, and the class name could be anything. Like I created a DB. So once I will do that, so we do have over here, which is a DB service. So over here, what I can do, I can write my logic to add my, you can say, HTTP request. For having some HTTP data, first thing you require HTTP client module. So how you can use that, as I told you in the beginning, any other third-party component, if you have to use, you need to define over here into imports. So first we need to import a new package over here, that is HTTP client, that will be imported from the same node modules that is in your system. Don't worry, you have to download it again. No, you just need to pass this particular path, angular/common/http, and from this path you will get this HTTP client module. And now you can just simply write this HTTP client over here, and it's good to go. Now your application is ready to have HTTP client instances. Maybe in future, suppose like you need forms module, so you can directly write over here, or simply we can write over here. Like again, we will be needed import a statement angular/forms, and we will be needing over here what was that, forms module. So this is one more module that we have to use for forms communication. I'll show you. So I just added both for now. So now we are ready to use you can say HTTP request. One more thing you have to add over here. From this particular HTTP client module, we have a class that is just HTTP client. And using this client you can only and only use if you have imported HTTP client module in your module folder. That's it. After that, you can use it directly. And now in your system, you can create an instance in your constructor. This is something we call dependency injection, like maybe HTTP, using the type of HTTP client. If you don't know, or if you are not aware with it, so I would suggest you to learn some dependency injection architectures first. So this would help you to understand why I created this over here. Because constructor can be, you can say, constructor can be directly sorry, I added at a wrong place, because this is not my service, this is my component. Here, where was our service? Here's the service database service. So we have to import this over here, because my service logic will be in my service. So
Hey, Nitin, sorry to interject you for one
Yes,
announcement.
please.
So
Yes.
we'll be, distributing the certificates for this session. Post the session is completed, I'll send in the details in the chat window. You guys can, go and download your certificates by keying in. And Nitin will be announcing the secret code for, the certificates just after he's completed.
Thanks. So
Sorry,
I hope
Nitin.
I
Please
would,
go on.
yes, no issue. But I would say I would needed maybe 10 minutes more to, maybe at least 10 to 15 minutes more
Sure,
to
sure.
showcase
Take your
everything.
time. Take your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So once this object will be injected in my constructor dependency, we can have some instant. We can create some functions over there. Like pretty simple. What we can do, we can make a function public get maybe records. So at the time of getting the records, we don't want any parameter from user side, but yes, for sure we have to return something. And what we return, I'll show you this dot http object, that object that you created in your constructor dependency, and the function get. And in this function get, you need to pass the URL. I'll show you what the URL you can do that. So let me just create a simply a URL parameter with the type string over here. So this is my URL, and this is the same URL from my JSON data was coming. So I can use this URL as the parameter of this particular function. So this particular function get will make a new HTTP GET request on my server, will get all the data as result, but not an object directly. If you can check out in the tooltip window, it will shows you, it will return an observable. An observable, basically it's asynchronous data. Asynchronous data, that means suppose there is 100 of data, thousands of data, and the data is coming into a, you can say, queue, like one data, two data, 10 data, next 50 data all together. So it will give me the data in terms of, you can say, chunks. And whenever you will call this, so let me show you. So now this particular service, DB service, having this particular function which is get records. So in this get records function, if we need to call, we need to assign that data over here in employees. So at the same time, I need one more object of my database, and that was from DB service. So let me again create a object in my constructor. Again, I'm using creating this object using dependency injection in my constructor, so that my application dependency injection resolver could resolve this instance automatically. And once it will be done, at the same time on constructor, or maybe in this particular on init load event of this particular, you can say, Angular application, what we can do, we can call db dot get records, and in get records we can call a function that is we call subscribe. As I told you, subscribe is just a markup, just a flag. Whenever any observable data will come, and there inside our observable there is a function next. So if there is a 10 data come, or maybe you can say the first chunk of the entire data will come, it will call the subscribe function. All the data will come here as result. You can just use maybe result, maybe P, or any other user friendly name to you. What I can do, I can give to a callback body. So once this will be subscribed, this callback body will be initialized, and all the data rendered, returned by this function that will be over here in result. What I can do, I can assign this globally over here in this employees function. And what I can do, I can define this as result. That's pretty simple. So I can save this application, and I can go back on my application. You'll see this time I just save my application. It just load my application. It's make a new request on Azure server, and it's trying to get some data. I hope we have some exception. That's why it's not loading some data. Let me check. DB not recognized as a function. Why so? Uh, yes, we did it. Let me save this again. I hope, yes, it's perfectly fine. I hope that file was not saved completely. So you can see, so this data is coming from your live Azure server. So this is how you can read your application. So the same time, you can go on this particular add new section, and you can make a add form, and using that add form you can make a new post request, because we don't have much time to showcase you by the entire putting the code all together. So this was an application that we recently created, and this is the application that I created before this session. I hope this is the same. No, okay. Yes, testing API. This is the application that I created. So this is the same application. I have this add HTML new form over here, which is I created an Angular form over here. So Angular form is nothing but it's a div, it's a form, and it's another div sections. So we have simply HTML label and inputs. To get the data from this particular, we just make an input type submit. Once the submit will call, this will call an ng submit event. And this submit event we use using this small bracket. And I told you this is we use for event binding. So when this event will come, this will call this save data function. And this save data will pass the
Hello.
entire data of this particular body. Hello? Yes?
Uh, Nitin, hi Nitin. Like, will we get the source code? Because as we don't have time,
Uh,
if we get the source
yes,
code,
yes, yes, for sure. I'll share this application with the organizers or maybe the Bhaskar today only, and he can basically forward you that. Or simply after this session, I'll give you my email ID. I can share that as a group if you can just write me over there too.
yeah, great,
Okay.
great. Thanks, Nitin. Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
we'll share the details.
For sure. Thank you. So here I can just save this function. And in this save function, what I did, I call another function from this service, which is save employee. And I put it this alert message and I can show you how this save is working. So again, as in the beginning, you just put a get request. I just make this time, this is the post request. In post request, along with the URL, you pass the data, which is coming from this function. So this is pretty simple. That's it. I didn't write any extra code, not a single line of code. These is the line of code that I put over there. And let me show you simply this application, how it's working over here. Maybe all records is working over here. If that application is working, yes. And let me add one more new data, maybe 109, maybe salary, and let me save this data. Once this data will be done, you can see the masses. If I'll go back to all record, so you can see this data is there, and not even in this data, because it's not a local data. You can see here, if I'll update the new application, we will get the data again over there, because the old data which is over there, which is just used to store in my databases using my ASP.NET APIs. So this is how simply you can work on. If you need to have more beautiful, you can say grids or something like that. So I would suggest you after this session, this is a pretty simple URL at Infragistics, infragistics.com/angular demos, angular-demos on your screen. You can just open that particular section and you will have so many beautiful samples for grid, for pre-grid, hierarchical, chart, map, any single use case that you want to use. And you can use these control. They are beautifully designed directly used in your application with tested, you can say, over millions of records at the same time. So this is just a suggestion if you want. So you can just go there and you can check this out. These grid come up with all the functionality like sorting, like filtering, like Excel style filtering, column pinning, or anything that you want in your application. So this was the simplest things that I would suggest. After that, I would showcase you. I have on tutorials link, I have some blogs over there, how you can use Bootstrap font or some in your Angular application, how you can work, you can say all about Angular forms. So all these my blogs are available there. This is my own product, tutorialslink.com. You can keep using this platform to learn such as all great things like for Alibaba Cloud, maybe Azure Cloud, ASP.NET, Python, and so many things. So this was just for getting you enabled about that. And now I hope I am done. I'm really, really sorry for that, because due to the less time, I was not able to showcase you all the things in detail, because it's really a huge application. So if I am not wrong, where is that? Okay, here is that. So where is the chat section? If anybody is want to know something, here is the chat section. So yes, if anybody wants, you can keep
Guys,
asking
you
now your
can
question.
you can ask your questions or type your questions. Nitin, I think there is one question from Prasad. He's asking if we
Yes,
can get
please.
the source code, Git repo link, or the
I will,
presentation.
yes, for sure. One more thing you can do, if you want to have this from GitHub repository, you can find out me on GitHub. Generally, I don't use public repositories, but I have my GitHub account. You can find me over there, GitHub GitHub/Nitin Pandit, I believe. And I will post that repository. Yes, this is the correct. So today only I will post this repository just for a demo of using this webinar name, and you can just clone that repository from there. Yes. Anything else? If I can help you out with that, or what you can do, you can keep watching me at nitin-pandit.com. You can write any email if you have any suggestions, any feedback. You can tweet me a feedback. Just at think about Nitin at Twitter. I would love if you can just tweet about the session. What like that will appreciate the organizers to this event, and for sure speakers also. So this is just an appreciation. That will be an appreciation for us. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you so much. So
Thanks,
now
Nitin. Nitin, I would also request you to announce the secret
okay,
code.
yes.
I have, guys, I've already, put the link of our streaming platform. That's www.fifthir.com. And if you can, you can download the certificate for this Angular session that you have attended. What I can do is probably I'll share my screen and I'll show you how to generate the certificate. If that works for everyone.
Yes. So just a second. I'm getting my. Okay, it's very pretty simple. I can put it on maybe Notepad. I hope this is a secret code that you can use to get the certificate of this particular event. Am I right, Bhaskar?
Yeah, that's right. A for America, B for Bangalore, numeric 5, M for Mumbai, and A for Australia. So all you need to do is, Nitin, if you can go on the fifthir.com website.
I'm just stopping my sharing my screen. You can share your screen if you want.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, kindly let me know if you guys can see my screen. So I'm on fifthir.com. And what I need to do is go in the right section, request your certificate, enter my details, name, phone number, and email. And I go to next, and I type the certificate code that Nitin has written.
I'm posting that in chat box also.
Sure. That's AV numeric 5 MA. And I just click on submit, and then your request, I have already requested a certificate, but you will get a message, that request has been taken, and our mailer will come on your email, and you'll get the certificate on the emails, and you can share that on your LinkedIn profile and social media accounts. Once again, I would like Nitin to thank Nitin for taking a very detailed and deep dive session. And
Thank you, sir.
Thanks everyone. I would request to also join our just in case you want to get updated for our upcoming events. So I am posting the details of our calendar, and you can obviously join our meetup group and the Telegram channel also. And just in case if you want to get associated with other sessions for data science, I myself take sessions on data science, and I have a couple of partners as well, people coming from different parts of the world. So we are having a TEDx speaker in our upcoming data science session also. We have already taken some sessions in past about that, but yeah, it's a continuation. So those who